Imagine being asleep in the middle of the night and you're woken up to somebody placing a plastic bag on your head and beating you. Imagine you have a 12-year-old in your house who's going through the same thing. How do you survive that moment? What happens to you mentally in order to survive that moment and to survive the days after that? And then imagine that you live in a society where the perpetrator has more rights than you, and you're not protected by the laws put into place. Our next guest talks about this and her experience and how she has made differences in the world and how she still takes each day one moment at a time in order for her to survive through this mental hell. I don't know if I can take it anymore.
When you are depressed, you don't want to get out of it.
It's so hard today.
You don't want to be bothered with anyone.
I don't have any motivation.
But overcoming depression is going to require that you get up and engage with life again.
All I want to do is sleep.
When you are feeling down, the worst thing you can do
The last thing
is
I want to do is
isolate
hang out
yourself,
with my friends.
because isolation actually intensifies sadness.
I don't think this will ever
So
go
I
away.
recommend finding a distraction that will shift your energy.
I need somebody to help me. Welcome to the Mental Health Podcast. This is Barbie Moreno. I am your host. And today I have with me Patricia, who's the founder and CEO of Crime Survivors. Welcome, Patricia.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. You are a very special guest to me because unlike most of my guests, which tend to be professionals or dealing with a lot of mental health issues and stuff, you are actually a survivor of a crime.
I am. I've been through a lot in my life, many different traumas and triggers throughout my life. But on April 4th of 2002, my personal trainer came into my house, drugged me, wrapped my face and head in saran wrap, beat me black and blue, screaming that he was going to kill me and my son. So life-changing. Never would have I ever thought someone would want to kill me.
And because we talk a lot about the podcast being titled Mental Health, is we want to talk about what that did to you. Obviously, it was traumatic, but one, if you don't mind going back to that situation, if it doesn't hurt you or trigger you in some way, shape, or form, when that's going on mentally, what happens?
And I always say, going through, I'm not an expert at anything. I'm just a girl trying to make a difference and using, I guess, my own experience to try to help other people. And mental health, being a trauma survivor and going through what I went through is almost like a life sentence in many different formats and different ways. And the mental health, mental wellness, mental illness, all of those kind of things play a huge role and part with victims and survivors and even family members that may have experienced something indirectly or secondary trauma or post-traumatic stress disorder, the anxiety, the depression, so many different things. And for me personally, I can only use my personal experience and then share what other victims and survivors share with me on a day-to-day basis. But, going through that, it's hard because when you think that your life is going to be ended and you feel like your last breath is there, for me, I, in an instant second, prayed to God and said, please give me my next breath. And I promise I'll live for community above self. How I even came to that in a quick second, because I've always loved life. No matter the things that I have been through in my life, I still have always loved life. I've always turned to God and my faith. And that's what I believe for my personal thing. My personal life is what has gotten me through every single day, whether it's PTSD. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, severe eating disorders. And it's not easy. It's challenging and it's hard to even voice it sometimes because, unfortunately, I still feel like, and even the professionals in the mental health corners that I talk to, I still feel sadly there are stigmas and shame and blame and guilt and questions that are so asked of us individuals that go through struggles in life that I feel should never be asked, because it's almost as if we're being poked fun at or questioned or doubted, or just go for a walk, Patricia, you'll feel better. Just stop eating the chocolate cake and you'll feel better. Or why did you have them in your house, Patricia? Or all those kind of things that actually even trigger someone even more.
Did you, and I'm sure people ask you all the time, but did you ever find out why?
It's interesting because I always ask the question myself too. Why would he want to kill me? Why would he threaten to kill my son? Like, what would be the outcome of that? And then I remember asking questions even to the deputy district attorney at the time and saying, why would he want to kill me? Can I just ask him that question? Will you just let me ask him that question? And I remember being told, Patricia, what difference does it make, the why? Like, why, if it was raining outside and he didn't like it raining, or because he went through something awful in his life, would there ever be an answer to the question of why to make it okay, right? Like, would that matter? So like, I guess now when people ask me that, and with all respect, I totally get the why, because I want to know why, but I don't know the why. I'm not sure I'll ever know the why. And frankly, does the why matter?
Right. I think the reason why I would imagine that somebody going through that would want to know, and then obviously we as humans always just like to make judgments and stuff like that we want to know the why is because we want to know, did you have any responsibility in it? Did you say something to him that pissed him off? I mean, and this is silly, right? Because obviously you have no responsibility in it, and this is his action. But I would say that that's probably why there's the question of the why.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I could have done anything, but at the end of the day, when we talk about that, like, is there something that I did or I said or didn't do or didn't say? I mean, that's almost victim blaming.
It is. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
And so it puts it back on me as if I did something, and I didn't do anything to deserve to have saran wrap wrapped around my face, punched, kicked, hit, have to go over a 12-foot balcony, have to fear the fact that I'm taking my last breath, or my child, my son I'm not going to be able to get him. I'm never going to see him again. So yeah, it's an interesting debate, and I love to talk to people. And I always say, listen, we can agree to disagree with respect, but we need to stop shaming and blaming the victim. And we need to ask him why, and is that why? Does it even matter at the end of the day?
It reminds me of, so I went through something, nothing like what you went through, but I was at a work event where we had to fly out for like a training. And we flew out to Chicago, and we had, as traditional work events go, everybody goes to dinner after the training and hangs out. And then, we were all hanging out, and I happened to have like the larger suite. So everybody came up to my suite to come back and, drink and talk and stuff like that. And I decided I wanted to go to bed. I didn't want to drink anymore. But I told people they could just stay in the suite if they wanted to. They were finished. And so I went into my room, which was separated by two different doors. One was the door to the room, and then there was an adjoining bathroom, which you could go through the bathroom to go into the room. And I went into the room to go to sleep, and I was changing, and then somebody came in through the bathroom. A guy came in through the bathroom, which I didn't really know the person much because, I just met all these people at training, and came into the room and tried to rape me. And I remember thinking to myself, I fought him off, thank goodness, but I remember thinking to myself, like, what did I do? Did he think I was being flirtatious? Did he think that I was attracted to him? And the lady that they had speak to the next day said, it doesn't matter if you were walking around butt naked in front of the guy. He has no right to try to force you to have sex. And so I do think we victim blame a lot.
And I'm so sorry that you've had that experience. I can't imagine what that must have been like for you, and something that you have to live with and think about and reflect back on, or maybe be triggered by, and hopefully you're able to walk through and learn and grow and whatever else through the process, and being able to give yourself a little TLC to know there is nothing that you did, absolutely nothing you did. It all belongs to that individual that made those choices to do that for whatever reason. And I agree with the person that told you, you could have been bare naked, it does not matter. I mean, nobody has a right to come into your space. But, what I always say, and I hope I see in my lifetime sometime is, you always hear in the media, you hear everybody say, well, he was murdered. Was he in a bad neighborhood? Was she showing a lot of cleavage or wearing a lot of makeup or a short skirt when she was raped or sexually assaulted? She didn't have the food on the table for him, and that's why he punched her and hit her. Maybe we should say, no, why did they do that? Why did he do that? Why did she victimize or shoot somebody? Those are the questions that we need to reverse back into, because it doesn't matter what you wear. It doesn't matter if dinner's on the table at a certain time or not. It doesn't matter if the person was coming out of church or going into the grocery store. No one has a right to victimize or traumatize somebody else. So we need to revert back to putting it on the other people. But we are prone to, especially as if you've been victimized or traumatized, or you're going through a challenging time in your life, it's almost, we get questioned, we get asked things, we get things said to us that I feel jeopardizes our mental health, our mental wellness. And I do feel that mental health, mental wellness, mental illness are three different things in three different separate buckets.
Yes.
And I think we need to acknowledge and recognize all of those as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you to this date, I still get questioned by certain people as to, well, how much did you have to drink? And why would you let all those people up in your suite? And like you said, it's like, it doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters. That doesn't make it okay. But it's just this, and you can't heal, right? It's very hard to heal when people continue to try to pick at you as the victim of this or the survivor of this, right? They want to pick at you to see what part you had in it. And it does mess with your mental well-being.
Without a doubt. It's almost like I always reflect back, and I always tell people, like if you have a cut, right? You have a cut and you have a Band-Aid and you do everything you can to let it heal. But then, you spill something on it, like nail polish when you're painting your nails, or hairspray when you're doing your hair, or whatever else it is. And it's that sting that you automatically feel when it's not healed yet. Well, when somebody continues to throw those kind of questions or doubts, or blame or shame or anything at you, it's almost like opening that wound again. And now you need to heal it all over again. But I do feel like I always tell, victims and survivors, I always tell people it shouldn't be, but it almost becomes our responsibility to educate our family, our friends, our coworkers, the community at large, to let them know when they do say things, or they put their foot in their mouth per se, and they just say something that offends us or disrespects us or whatever. It is our responsibility to educate them, because maybe they just don't know, because they've never went through what we've went through.
Right.
And they just want us to be healthy and happy and back to whatever. And so we need to be able to say, excuse me, I understand you're asking me that question, maybe because you care or you just don't know. But that question that you just asked me is very hurtful. It's hurting my heart, my soul, it's triggering me. And maybe that's probably not the best question for you to ask.
I like the way that you phrased that. How is your son doing?
My son has struggled. My son was 12 at the time, and he has since struggled a lot with mental health and wellness and illness as well after, as a single mom, raising a 12-year-old and raising a man by myself, a child at the time. He almost lost his mom. So, and it's been very difficult, because I've also made the sacrifice in my life and made the promise to God that I would live for community above self. And I believe that I have probably went too far with that, because, starting the organization Crime Survivors, of which I love and I'm passionate about every day. But I've also made this my calling and mission. And so, trying to help my son through the process and deal with his, circumstances and everything else. It's hard. It's hard for children to go through this, no matter what the crime is, when a significant other or a sibling or a loss, or you have to grieve that process. And sometimes, especially young children, especially boys and men, I think they have more of a challenging time to accept it and to grieve through the process.
Right. Because there's stigmas on how they should grieve. Is that why?
I think so. I do think so. I think, the old analogy, men are men, they don't cry, they don't share their feelings or emotions. They can just move on with their lives, but that's not true. Whether you're a man or a woman, to me, it makes no difference. I mean, you have to be able to grieve. And I always tell people as well, we always talk about grieve when someone is murdered or dies of cancer or dies naturally or whatever. But I'm a true believer that we have to grieve a lot of stuff. We have to grieve a loss of a job. We have to grieve the loss of a parent or a sibling or a family member or a friend. We have to grieve. I have a friend that's just gotten rid of her car and she's grieving the loss of her car. And it sounds really silly, but she loved the car. She had to get rid of it because of an accident, and she's having anxiety over it. And so that's where I say mental wellness. We have to acknowledge those feelings and those emotions and grieve through many things throughout our lives.
Did you have to grieve the loss of your old life before all of this happened?
Oh, I think I'm going to forever grieve that. In all honesty, I think it was definitely a process. I get asked a question a lot on how did you get through? How did you cope? What was the turning point or sign that changed you from a victim to a survivor? Because I also do believe there's a difference between living a victim's life and a survivor's life.
Right.
And no offense to anybody else. I feel whoever calls themselves whatever, that's their choice. But my choice is to be, I'm a survivor, I'm a thriver, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm a community leader, but I'm also a woman that struggles on this life journey. And so I don't know what the point was, but it could have possibly been when I was in one room and I heard my son in the other room talking to his friends saying, I wonder if my mom's ever going to be my mom again, or if I'm going to have to take care of her for the rest of my life. And I for 6 months, I sat in my room and stared at the wall and cried and, wasn't able to take care of my son so much for 6 months. And when I heard him say that, because my son has been everything to me in my life, I went to counseling and therapy. And I realized, because before that, I thought, well, if I go to counseling and therapy, that means there's something wrong with me. And then I don't know where I got that put in my head at what age or whatever, but I got up, I went to therapy, and I was like, I have to fight for my son. If I can't fight for myself right now, I have to fight for him.
Right.
And it was life-changing.
Well, I would think that in general, society teaches us it's getting better, but society teaches us that if you have to go to therapy, it's because something's wrong with you. And it's a shameful thing.
Well, and it took me a long time to realize, because I kept saying, well, there's nothing wrong with me. He did this to me. Like, I don't get it. Like, I remember when I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, and severe eating disorders. And I remember, listen, I was diagnosed with eating disorders at the young age of 10. So that was not an issue for me. I was like, I own that. I accept it. I get it. Right. The depression and the anxiety, I couldn't understand, because I just, in my head, I was like, but wait a minute, he did this to me. Like, how could I be like, what's wrong with me? And it took me a long process to realize and to accept, of course, there's something wrong with me. A guy tried to kill me. So I'm going to own that there's something wrong with me right now until I can work through these feelings and emotions and grieve the fact that someone tried to kill me and that my life has changed forevermore. And it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It doesn't mean that I have to be labeled or known as the person that survived attempted murder, because I'm so much more than that. That doesn't define who I am. At the time, there was something wrong with me. And that's okay. I had to work through that, but it wasn't because of a fault or a blame and if somebody puts stigma and shame on me for that, shame on them for that, is what I say.
Yeah. So I know when we had spoken, when we talked before you came on the show, just to see if this was going to be a fit for you, you had said that your perpetrator only got 120 days in jail. Is that right?
That's correct. He was charged with deliberate premeditated attempted murder, burglary in the first degree, assault with a deadly weapon, and criminal threats. And through our legal system, he served approximately 120 days, 5 years anger management classes, and 5 years probation, and has been on the street ever since. And I pray every day that he hasn't already taken someone else's life. I pray every day that he doesn't hurt somebody else. And, you know, I hope, but I know what he's capable of. So I don't expect anybody else to understand that, but I do. But I've also forgiven him, because I believe that with faith there is hope, and I don't want to live as an angry person the rest of my life, or resentful. So for me to release that, and he probably doesn't know, and he doesn't care one way or the other, because he's probably a narcissist and a monster, is what I feel. But I'd like to live without resentment and anger and fear and all that pain. And so for me, releasing that, and I forgive him, I forgive other people, I forgive myself. It allows me to get up in the morning and smile and be happy and give back to my community, and to make love and faith and hope and healing a priority, not only for myself, but for other people.
And I think that's an amazing way to live. And then the justified part of me says, aren't you angry at the system that allowed them to let him out after 120 days?
Well, I was angry for a very long time. And there are days that I get triggered and I get very, that anger kind of comes back. But it depends on what the anger is. Like, the anger is not of wanting to hurt anybody, to get back at anybody. I acknowledge and recognize the feelings and emotions, and that's part of healing. That's part of taking care of myself, to say, okay, it's okay to be angry today. It's okay to be sad today. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay to not be perfect. Nobody's perfect, you know? But it took me a long time to get through that process. And when I see what's happening in our system now, our justice system, our legal process, it's actually worse now, all these years later, than it was when I went through the system. But I did speak up for myself. I did, you know, everything that I could to allow the system to know that what happened, and that I wasn't going to be silent, and that I was going to be a voice for myself, a voice for my son, a voice for the voiceless. And I like to think that I'm continuously doing that, because I know what other people, maybe I don't know exactly what other people are going through, but I know what my walk and journey was. And I want to make sure other people know that they're taking care of themselves and making themselves a priority over the legal system, over anything else, because it's a full circle, which goes back to what we're talking about today: mental health, mental wellness, mental illnesses. Maybe if we were all able to acknowledge and recognize our feelings and our emotions, maybe we wouldn't have as much drugs that we have today. Maybe we wouldn't have as much crime as we have, or homelessness, or mental illnesses. But we're still in a place where, as much money is going towards mental health, it's actually worse now than it's ever been.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I wish I knew, but I don't. And I'm not an expert at anything, and I don't want to dismiss anybody out there, because I know there are some incredible, the mental health providers, psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, individuals out there doing incredible work. Why is it not enough? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think sometimes it has to do with politicians, the political arena, not getting down to the nitty-gritty cause and reasoning behind it. But at the end of the day, for me, I think we've gotten so far away from God and country and family and forgiveness and faith and community and self, and care, that I think those are a lot of the reasons we're at where we're at today.
Yeah, definitely. I understand that. Now, you created your nonprofit, and you said that maybe you went overboard with it, but can you talk to us about what it is that your nonprofit does for survivors?
Absolutely. And I don't think I went overboard with the nonprofit. I think I probably put too much. I think I pulled away from maybe my son or my grandchildren or my friends, because I don't take time for as much as I should. I should take more time for self-care, more time for my friends, more time for my family. But that's probably where I meant to say that I went overboard with it. But
Right.
I
Because it can become consuming, right?
Oh, it's all consuming because I guess maybe, when I survived, I was like, I don't want somebody else to go through this, right? And so I'm going to live my life. I'm going to do everything I can. I made a promise to God. And, somebody told me a couple of years ago, they're like, yes, but I don't think God wants you to do this 24/7. And you've been doing it 24/7 for 20 years. So that's not, I think the promise has went too far, they told me, which that's possibly the case. But I feel very blessed and grateful to do what I do every day, starting Crime Survivors to bring awareness to the communities, to let them know that crime does happen. It happens in every community. Prevention, how do you prevent it from happening to yourself, to a loved one, at your place of work, wherever you're at? Advocacy, how do you be a voice for the voiceless? How do you advocate, whether it's with your elected officials, whether it's partnering with law enforcement, whether it's working in the community just to get out there and advocate and make sure that victims matter and make sure that people know about crime and their rights and all of that. And then healing, how does a victim or a survivor or a family member, how do you heal through victimization and trauma? It is possible. One of the things that I want to be clear on is, though, especially when someone is murdered, there's no closure. And there's really no closure for any victimization and trauma, because the only closure you'd have is if it didn't exist. But it does exist, and it is a life sentence to a certain degree, but it doesn't mean that you can't have a better life, because you could actually have a better life after victimization and trauma, if you get connected with the right professionals, the right therapy, the right counselors, the right support groups, the right organizations like Crime Survivors, as well as many other incredible organizations that are out there.
I'm looking at your website, which it's at crimesurvivors.org. And you have quite a few people on, under the who we are. Can you talk to us about the team that you built?
Absolutely. This organization only exists because of the team, the donors, the sponsors, the volunteers. I'm only one person, so this organization would never be where it's at today without our team of our board of directors, our Crime Survivors Council members, our advisory members, our volunteers, whether it's an elected official, a sheriff, a district attorney. Many victims and survivors come back to volunteer and support, which I think is absolutely incredible. After we help them, they want to be able to pay it forward and give back to other people. And so, we have a board of directors, which we have 6 individuals on. We have close to 100 people on our Crime Survivors Council. I think we have like 13 on our advisory. We have over 100 volunteers, depending on what program or training or event that we're doing in the community. We have minimal staff members because we try to keep our donor dollars to attribute back into the community, which I'm really proud that 93 to 94% of every dollar that comes into the organization goes back out into the community. So I'm really proud of that.
Do the schools let you come in and talk?
I used to go to some of the schools, but it is challenging and difficult to get into the schools. A lot of times they don't want to talk about victimization or trauma. A lot of the parents don't want to talk about victimization and trauma because of whatever's going on in their home. Maybe they could be exposed. I don't know. So schools are very challenging to get into, in my opinion. But we want to get into schools, places of worship, anybody that will listen and hear, to be able to break the cycles of victimization and trauma.
Right.
Places that you wouldn't even think of, like where you get your hair done, where you get your nails done. I mean,
right.
People should be able to know where to go to be able to talk about crime.
I mean, absolutely. There should be flyers or something for your place all over the place, because so many people are, have been afflicted by this and they have no idea where to go.
It's interesting because I always tell people, the best hidden secrets are like the victim assistance programs, not only, here in Orange County, but Los Angeles County, throughout the state of California, throughout this nation. If anybody's listening throughout different states, I want to make sure that you're aware of the victim assistance program, as well as the family justice centers and the resource centers, because all these locations that are out there to help victims and survivors, and most people never know. It's hard to find the referrals and the resources to be able to get the help. And when you're going through trauma, it's very difficult to get your mind into a space to want to make a phone call to be able to share what happened to you. So anybody today, if you need a resource in your local area, call through the district attorney's office, the victim assistance programs, reach out to the family justice centers in your area, reach out to the resource centers, because that's where it starts. And we're really proud to collaborate and partner with those agencies. Also the national hotlines, like the National Rape Crisis Hotline, the National Domestic Violence Hotlines that you can reach out to. Those groups are incredible, and they will refer over to our organization, and we refer back and forth.
So let's go into the situation. Somebody is, let's say, a victim of rape. Let's go to something that's actually probably quite common. There is a teenage party and there's drinking involved. And one of the girls, a situation comes arise where too much alcohol, one of the girls ends up being raped in that situation. Through your resources or through your guidance, or what happens? What's the next step with that? I mean, in general, right, she's going to feel like maybe it's her fault because she was drinking. She's probably not going to report it to her parents because she doesn't want to tell her parents that she was drinking, right? Then we go into the whole mental health spin of it. That's why you have these kids who are committing suicide and cutting themselves and doing all of these different things. As somebody who's dealt with so many, or who has helped, but also seen so many different circumstances, what would you say to that girl?
And it's also interesting because I always also like to tell people there are no two victims alike, even two rape victims, two domestic violence victims, two families of murder. Even though they've been through the similar crime, say two rape victims, they both may need something completely different. So to me, it's being able to listen and hear and meet where they're at. That's trauma-informed care, is to be able to have them guide us on what they need as well. And most times they have no idea what they need, what they should do, what they shouldn't do. The talk and conversation of a rape victim is the first thing that they typically want to do is take a shower. And the first thing we want them to do is, or law enforcement also wants them to do, is make sure that they don't do that and that they take the evidence to the police. And so, but they've already been told and done something to them by no choice of theirs, right? So we have to allow individuals to make their own choice. And what I always say is the best thing would be to be able to call law enforcement, report it, document it, go to get the rape kit done so that evidence can all be put together, have the professionals do all of that, give you the guidance of the victim advocate, the different resources, get into counseling, therapy, have all of that. But there are many rape victims that do not want to do that at all. And that is completely okay. That is their choice. We would like to guide them to do that, no matter if it's the first 24 hours or 6 years down the road. Of course, they wouldn't be able to have the rape kit 6 years down the road, but we would like them to have all of that, information so that they can make sure that they make those choices. And sometimes if they don't know what choice to make, call the RAID, call the national hotline, talk to a professional to guide you through that process, or go to counseling and therapy. Because even if a rape victim doesn't want to go to counseling and therapy, we say if you avoid it, it's going to come back in a trigger, in a nightmare, in a trauma, in another relationship when you're going to be intimate. It could, if there's no guarantees it would come back or not, but it can. So if you get the help in the beginning, and also no fault to a rape victim at all, but if you don't say anything, this individual is not going to stop. They're going to do it to somebody else. So that's why we always do say, report it, report it, report it. So therefore, hopefully this individual can be stopped. Even though the person's not stopped, though, it's no fault to the rape victim either way, but we would like to see them report it.
And so somebody in that situation, let's say she doesn't report it, probably wouldn't even know about your program, because your program is primarily referred by law enforcement, and I would imagine some sort of therapist and things like that. So that person probably would not have access to your resources because there's no education in our school systems.
Correct. And even in the school system, because maybe that individual is not going to tell anybody. Maybe if they tell a teacher, the teacher is going to report it, of course, or depending on the situation or circumstance, if they go to the hospital, depending on the circumstance. But if they go someplace, school, hospital, whatever else it is, most likely somebody's going to give them a referral. May not be to us. It could be to whomever, right? Hopefully, or they go online and they Google, right? Resources, or they get connected to someone like the hotline. Whoever they get connected to, that individual hopefully will be able to let them know first and foremost that they're not alone, and that they do not have to walk this journey alone, and that we believe them. No matter the who, what, why, where, anything, we believe them. You're not alone. There is help and support. Whether you report or you don't report, there is still help and support to be able to help you on this new journey moving forward.
What do you, I mean, this is kind of a very large question, but what do you think is the biggest mental barrier, like mental health barrier, that people who are victimized by somebody else, or, have survived some sort of a crime go through? Is it like, why did this happen to me? Is it guilt? Is it shame? What do you think?
I think it's a combination. I wouldn't say it's one thing or the other. I think it is definitely a combination. Will I be looked at differently? Will people judge me? Will people shame me or blame me? I'm dealing with guilt. What if I would have done this? Would have it not happened? Especially we have red flags, right? And especially women, we have a gut feeling and red flags sometimes, not in every situation, but sometimes we do, and we always push them away and don't acknowledge them. And I say to everybody, we should acknowledge them and recognize them, even if somebody else thinks we're a little bit crazy. Doesn't matter. You have a feeling, you should acknowledge it and recognize it. But I really do think that some people remain silent just because they don't know. They don't know what's on the other side of if they share. And I think that's probably the biggest struggle. The fear of being hurt again by a family member or a friend. And even though it may not be victimization, but just hurt emotionally, mentally, where you think you can control your feelings and emotions and bury them in your belly way down deep, and then you can just move on with your life. But that's not factual. That's not statistically truthful. And I think sometimes we play mind games within our own head to think that everything will be okay. I just need to get through this next month and it's just going to go away.
I think that's the mental health part of it, right? Like that ongoing talking to ourselves, and just it's all consuming. And also we're lying to ourselves that, it will go away, when it's not going to go away unless you treat it, just like anything else, right? So you were kind of talking about, if you have a cut or whatever, but it's like saying if you have a tumor and you wish it to go away, it's not going to happen. You have to go and treat it. And it's the same thing with the mind. I feel like a lot of people forget that the mind is also something that needs help and needs to be treated. You were talking about, you feel like there's 3 different kinds of, there's mental health, there's mental wellness. And can you kind of go over that with me?
Yeah. And again, I just always like to say I'm not an expert at anything, but I do believe that there's 3 buckets: mental health, mental wellness, and mental illness. So mental illness, you're diagnosed by the doctor, you have schizoaffective or schizophrenic or bipolar, or, you're diagnosed with mental illness, and it's out of your control. And, in order to hopefully, get through that on your life journey, you have to have medication, you have to be on a plan, you have to, there's all that, right, with mental illness. Mental health is, I believe, taking care of ourselves every single day, no matter who you are, no matter what walk, what journey, no matter what you're going through in your life. Mental health is taking that self-care for yourself, whether it's meditation or yoga, or you go to the gym to exercise, whether it's eating healthy. It's just being able to say, listen, we can only, we're human beings. We can only take in so much, right? So is taking care of your mental health. What are you doing? You get in a fight with someone, or an argument with your significant other, and it could be small, it could be large, right? You are having a debate with your friend, whatever else it is, you're struggling at work. So I say take care of your mental health. And mental health and mental wellness, it goes hand in hand. I think those also go hand in hand together, but they still are completely separate, I believe. So I tell people self-care for mental wellness is self-care. What are you doing to take care of yourself? I talk to professionals, I talk to individuals on a day-to-day basis that are crying, that are drinking too much, eating too much, cutting themselves, over shopping, gambling, of all walks of life. People, especially past COVID now, people are struggling mentally with their mental health, with their mental wellness. Are they taking enough time? People are working longer hours than they've ever worked. They're not acknowledging the stresses that daily life carries. And to me, it just reverts back, like, what are you doing to take care of your mental health? What are you doing for your mental wellness? Get out there, take care of yourself. Don't feel guilty about going for a walk. Don't feel guilty for, going to the beach and just taking that time to allow your brain, your heart, your body, your soul to be rejuvenated, to be cared for, because you deserve it.
And so can I ask you what you do for your mental wellness and mental health?
Oh, well, I can preach it, but I don't practice it. Let me be honest.
Right? That's the thing.
That is really, I am very guilty at that, because I preach it every day, talking about vicarious trauma and compassion fatigue and secondary traumas. And, I'm really good at doing self-care trainings and conversations, but I am not the best at, in all honesty. So I guess I'm a hypocrite to a certain degree, because I preach it and don't practice it. But I'm trying. I try every day. I have an issue, like I tell people, listen, at the end of the day, I've dealt with so much. I've worked 16 hours today, and I just ate a 5-pound box of chocolates, but I feel much better. And that's the worst thing you can do. I talked to a friend, she's like, well, I just drank a bottle of wine. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not healthy. That's not good. Let's try to find other ways to take care of ourselves.
It's hard though, right? Because it's like, even though the tools that you should be doing and the things that could help you feel better, it's like the way that we live our lives now that we're so busy on the go all the time, which I believe is what's causing a lot of our mental health issues, because we don't take the time to take care of ourselves and take the breaks. But it feels like there's always so much to do, that although we know to do these things, we know we should go for a walk, we know that we should give ourselves some space. Meditation now is becoming more and more something that's being taught, mindfulness, stuff like that. We know all of these things, but we don't do it.
And I wonder why that is. I wonder what the reason is. Like, sometimes I'll ask myself, like, why can I preach it and not practice it? Why don't I just get up and go for a walk? Like, why do I not feel worthy enough of it? Do I not feel worthy of self-care, worthy of taking care of myself? Or what if I did take care of myself? What if I did lose the 20 pounds I want to lose? What if I put down the chocolate? What would that mean? So I think sometimes I like to question myself and just say, like, what am I afraid of on the other end? Like, what is the fear in that? Because, anger and controlling stuff. And then I also say to myself, I think I'm controlling this issue, but I have no control over it at all.
Well, and I mean, on my side of it, looking at you, I would say I would probably never want to hire a personal trainer again. Like, that would not be something I would ever want to do because of your experience.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, there's definitely triggers. I want to go to the gym so bad. I miss exercising at the gym, but that triggers me like no other. I want to do a certain things, every time I have to deal with, we help victims here with diapers, and every month the diapers come and they're wrapped in saran wrap, and I'm triggered every single time because I had saran wrap wrapped around my face, and I try to acknowledge and recognize that. And that's my mental health and wellness for me, I guess, is because I won't avoid it. I acknowledge it and recognize it, but I do avoid the gym to a certain degree, just because of that. But sometimes I have to face my fears, and I tell everybody else, face our fears to get to the better side. It's also the old analogy of sometimes you have to close one door in order to open a new door that's much better than the other door.
How did you get the people that you have on your team and in your organization? Like, did they just come to you through your actions and your work over the time?
It did take time. It did not happen overnight because I was very outspoken in the beginning, and sometimes that's a challenge in its own self. And so I feel, I could be wrong, but I feel like the respect has been earned and not given. And I think that it has been witnessed by individuals, my sacrifice, my commitment, my dedication, to be able to do better, to be able to help, to be able to make a better impact. So I really do like to believe that it's all been earned, and the people that are in our circle and surrounding us is because they know the good that we're doing. And they believe in me, they believe in the mission, they believe in our values, they believe in our transparency. And to me, that's very important.
Well, because I'm looking at your Crime Survivors Council, right? And you've got some pretty heavy hitters on here who have influence. And I just find it so interesting that this is not something that we talk about at the schools. I keep going back to this because, well, one, if you listen to my podcast, you'll see I'm very passionate about this. I feel like we don't teach children useful things as much as we need to. And this, just knowing that there's a resource, knowing that, that there's different tools that can be used, just knowing that you're there, knowing that things happen and that we will get through them, all of these different things that I'm sure that you can speak to way better than I am at this moment, but they need to be taught to our kids, because how else are we going to get better as a society?
Well, and I agree. And I'm not saying that nobody's talking in the schools. I'm sure I think there are some people talking in the schools, but I think it's controlled. I would think, no disrespect to any school or educator or anything else, but I think it's not on the level that it should be. I will definitely say that. And again, no disrespect, but we have law enforcement that's doing a great job, and they're in the schools and they're doing what they can do. But we're talking about certain things in schools are allowing to teach kids at a very young age about sex. They stopped a lot of the drug programs in the schools, depending on what school it is, from what I'm being told by teachers. And I'm told by a lot of educators that the reason why they don't want it talked about so much in schools is because it allows a child to disclose that maybe something's going on in the home.
Well, that's
Or
exactly where they should be able to disclose it, a safe place like school.
correct, without a doubt. And listen, when there's domestic violence in a home, there's many signs that children are showing. And I feel that it is the number one place. That's why I feel like statistically the numbers were down in reporting child abuse, reporting crimes, reporting other things during the pandemic, because kids were not at school. And teachers are maybe the number one reporters. Teachers, places of, worship, maybe different daycares, different things like that. And so I think I'm a true believer that we are not doing enough on any avenue. I think we need to do more. And whether it's in the schools, whether it's in the streets, whether it's in the clubs, whether it's wherever it's at, we need to be. But many people are afraid. I talk to many educators and teachers, and they're afraid to speak out. There's a lot of bullying going on, and especially the teachers now, they're afraid, because what happens if a student comes to school with a gun? We have that issue, and yet we're also afraid of talking about that as well.
Well, so I was talking on another podcast about this, but on Friday, we got notifications. I live in Tustin. And so we got notifications that there was some TikTok thing that said basically like somebody was going to come to school on Friday. I think it was Friday, and shoot up the school. Right. So then as a parent, we get an email, which is annoying, in the middle of the day. It was like, 10 a.m. saying that, this is what's going on. There's an increased police presence, but it looks like it's a false alarm, right? Because nothing happened. But then today, literally while I'm talking to you, an email flashes up and it's the exact same thing. There was another person who said like they were going to shoot up the schools, and we get an email and we get something saying that, the police are there. But I mean, these kids, in a good area, which I know it doesn't matter what area you live in, but it's just like and I should take that back because that comment was bad. But these kids go to school and they don't even know if they're going to be safe.
Well, and that's true. And we did hear about that as well. I did hear about that before I logged on today with you. And so it is going to be happening a lot more. And I say our elected officials need to step up to the plate and, agree to disagree with respect. Individuals keep saying it's about the guns. But to me, my personal belief, guns don't get off the table and shoot people. It is people. It is individuals that are killing people at huge rates. And depending on where you reside at, I mean, every single day in LA County, somebody's being killed just walking outside. A young girl, 19 years old, just got shot. Every day something is happening. And so that's where I reflect back and say, I don't know what the answers are. I'm only one person, but I feel like we're not doing enough, and we need to get out of this cycle, and we need to ask our teachers, and we need to have parents asking the principals and asking their school district, what are you doing to keep our children safe? Many of my friends are now homeschooling their children and don't want to take them to school. I'm not sure that's the answer either, but I think that we all have a right and responsibility as parents to be able to ask hard questions at school and demand that we do trainings at school, that we have individuals to come in, because these children are being drastically affected when they're getting notifications and their parents are telling them, be careful at school today because there's going to be police there because there was this or that threat. I mean, what does that do to the mind when you're talking about mental health? Right. What does that do to a mind of a child at the age of 6 or 10 or 15 or 20?
Well, and the problem is that so no mentally stable person decides that they're going to threaten to shoot up a school, right? So obviously, in my opinion, you have a mental health issue right then and there, right? You have a mental illness, you have something going on with the person whose mind is crazy enough to think that they should go and shoot up a school. So it continues to me to go back to mental health, mental well-being, and mental illnesses. And really, how do you fix it if you don't address that problem?
You have to start with that problem. That's why I'm saying, we need to do something, because what's happening now is not working, and more money is being thrown at mental health, but where is it going, or how is it changing anything? I do not know. I wish I knew. Yeah. But when you see the mental health issues with the crime and the all of that, you see the drug issues that people are turning to drugs because they're not able to cope. When you see a state like California that now is going to vote to legalize hallucinative drugs, how did we get to a place like that? Because to me, when you allow those to be legalized, and agree to disagree with respect with anybody, but when you allow those, people are going to be walking around in the streets like zombies.
Right. And I had a guest on my podcast and we discussed this as well, who was pro legalizing, psychedelics. And my thing that I was saying during that podcast was, as a parent, it would not be okay for me that my kid could go down to the local store and buy psychedelics because now they're legal. And it was like, well, there would be an age limit. I'm like, it doesn't matter. You see kids smoking cigarettes and you see kids drinking alcohol. Those things being legal allow access to it, just like it would allow additional access to psychedelics. So that's a whole nother thing, right? If we could go back to you, because you've done so much work with your Crime Survivors Resource Center, what else can you tell us that you feel like we can do, that you have help, that you can, that we can do with your resource centers, that we as individuals, because we have to take action, right? We can't just say like, oh, this governor should do this and this person should do this. It's all of us. Like you said, it's a community. So as a community member, how do I take action and work with your resource center to make a difference?
Well, and thank you for that. Thank you for asking, because for us, we are a nonprofit organization. So all donations that come in are tax deductible. And so what we ask the community to do, of course, we always need money. Money is a number one thing. I think it's the root of all evil. And I don't have the love for money. I lost the love when I survived for money, but I realized that without it, I can't do our mission. I can't do our programs. I can't help victims without it. So first and foremost, we always need money. We always need in-kind items, whether it's, I ask community members, will you host a toy drive? Will you host a stuffed animal drive, or a blanket drive, or a hygiene drive? Or, if you're a dentist, will you donate toothpaste and toothbrush to us? If you want to donate detergent, if, we only accept new items, but would you like to donate some socks or some baby wipes? We're always in need of baby wipes. So maybe when you're doing your Christmas holiday shopping, just, donate some baby wipes to us, or an extra couple toys to our organization to give back to victims and survivors. Coming out and volunteering at some of our events that we have within the community. We're always constantly updating our social media. So you can go on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or Instagram and find out what we're working on, what we're doing, what our needs are. You can always call or email us anytime. Check out our website, of course, but just get involved and do something. Maybe you have a gift or a talent or an expertise on something that you would like to call us and provide some services to us. Maybe a foundation, a philanthropist or entrepreneur that maybe want to give back to the community. Again, we're really proud how much money goes back right directly out into the community, 93 to 94%, depending on what year it is. Get involved. Everybody can do something. And I always use this as an example. When somebody said to me, I'm sorry, I can't do anything. I'm sorry. And I said, it's okay that you don't want to do something. I completely get it. There's a difference between not wanting to do it because maybe you don't believe in our mission, and that's totally okay. Or you just don't want to give to us. But I think everybody can do something. And I'll never forget the homeless man that was outside the Starbucks that was watching us load in and out some things for an event. And at the end, he came and he placed quarters in my hand and said, I want to help those victims too. Will you take this and help those victims? And I thought, here's a homeless man that wants to be able to give back, and he has nothing himself.
Right.
And I thought
so
it was
many
so
of us,
powerful.
and so many of us make excuses, right? Like, okay, so let's say you quote unquote don't have the time, which we all know you probably can find it. Then if you don't have the time, then give supplies or money, but find a way to help, because it's not going to fix itself.
Well, and plus that's also part of your mental health and your mental wellness. When you give back to the community, whether it's to crime survivors, whether it's to the animal shelter, whether it's to Chalk Children Hospital, whatever you choose, the domestic violence shelter, the rape crisis center, or whatever you so choose, find something that you could become passionate about. There is no greater high. There is no greater laughter and happiness and self just giving, I guess, by giving back. There is nothing that you can gain. Like somebody could go and give you a Louis Vuitton purse, or you could give somebody that, but you're not going to get what you do by giving back something that is needed more in the community through a nonprofit organization. Whether it's going to feed the homeless, whether it's going to the rescue mission, it doesn't matter what you choose. I'm telling you, it will do your heart and your soul and your mental stability so good to be able to give back and help.
Well, and I feel like we've lost that sense of community. It seems like it's very individualistic now. Not everybody, obviously, that's not across the board, but in general, especially the way that social media goes and who we feel like is, valuable to us and who people look up to, and things like that. It's about what they have and what they look like and not what they do.
Oh, like I said, we've gotten so far away from God and country and community and self. And I don't know the answer on why that is. I have no idea, but I do feel that if we got back to that, whatever your faith or place of worship or belief or whatever else, whatever your family, whatever your life experiences have been, do something for yourself and do something for somebody else. When you go to the store, a lot of people, they would go to Starbucks and they pay for their order in the car behind them, or somebody goes and buys a loaf of bread at the store and they pay for the person behind them. Those little kind of things can make all the difference to someone.
Right.
And I think it does your heart really good. And I don't know how to bring that back, but I also don't want to take away from the fact that there are some incredible individuals out there. Like I said earlier, we couldn't do what we do without the people that are donating and volunteering and giving of their time and talents through this organization. It's incredible. So there are still some incredible, amazing human beings, individuals, nonprofits, government entities that are doing fabulous within our communities. But can we do better? Can other people do better? Absolutely, without a doubt.
Absolutely. And it's a ripple effect, right? Like you were saying, if somebody I remember those days when you'd go to Starbucks and the person would pay for your order. And then of course you'd be happy to pay for the next person behind you. Or maybe that day you probably shouldn't have had Starbucks because you didn't really have the extra money, but you were tired and you needed to get to work, and so that really made a big difference in your life. All of these little things that we do, and then you take big things like what you're doing. All of these things have a ripple effect that make our community better. Can you give us something to leave us today, to put into our mind, to remember, it might be about survivors, it might be about community, but what is something that you would tell us today as an ending?
I first and foremost just want to thank you for having me on today and doing the great work that you're doing, and being a voice and making a difference and an impact and outreaching to do incredible work and making a difference in our community. So thank you so much for all that you do.
I appreciate that.
And I just want to leave everybody with, no matter what you've been through in your life, you're not alone. You're not defined by one incident or two or three or whatever walk or journey you've went through. There is hope for healing. There is help. There is support. You're not alone. Please take care of yourself. Look in the mirror at yourself. Love yourself. It starts with love. It starts with faith. It starts with hope. It starts with healing. And it starts with one baby step to be able to make a difference and an impact in your life. You deserve it. You are worthy. So get out there and love yourself, love others, and do all that you can to make it a better community, because your voice matters. You are one person, but it is, like you said, a rippling effect, and together we are better. And so trust in yourself, trust in your instinct, and be kind. Don't forget to be kind to others, kind to yourself, and just reflect and take time.
And Patricia, how do we find you? I know it's crimesurvivors.org. Do you know the handles for your Facebook and your Instagram, or is that somebody else that knows all that stuff?
Yeah, you can go on social media, which is at Crime Survivors. So you can check all of those at Crime Survivors. You can donate on Venmo at Crime Survivors. You can go to crimesurvivors.org and see the who, what, why, where we are, and also donate or decide to volunteer or do whatever you want to get involved in the organization. If you're in need of help or support, you can call or email or go on our website anytime. Our phone number is 844-853-HOPE. And then you can also email info@crimesurvivors.org. And again, crimesurvivors.org is the website.
And go to just going to your local sheriff's or police department as well. You will be able to find resources no matter what.
Absolutely. If you've been a victim of a crime, please consider reporting it to the police, no matter what the outcome is, no matter what the situation or circumstance happens with the legal process. At least report it, stand up for yourself, take back your life, take back the control of what's been taken away from you. You do have the power to do that. Report it to the police, ask them for referrals and resources, call your local victim assistance program through the district attorney's office, or reach out to a family justice center or a resource center in your area.
Well, Patricia, with crimesurvivors.org, thank you for coming on our show today. I feel like your voice is empowering to those who have been through their own situations, which we've all had things in our life, and also to others to make sure that they step up and become, responsible for their community and stop expecting others to make changes. We need to make our changes ourselves. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Mm-mm.